Welcome, welcome. So we had an interruption because of power outage. So you'll bear with me if you're joining me and then, it's already late, but we are going to kickstart our program. So I'm going to wait for people to start joining, and then I'll start also notifying people so that they can join. And then we'll start today's webinar. So I'm very, very excited for today. And yeah, so we'll be back in a bit. Yes. All right, all right. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's notify people that we are starting. I'm going to just notify a few people online that we are live. And please, if you're joining now, please let me know in the chat where you're joining us from, the city or country, so that we can have a more interactive session. Yeah, so I've been very, very excited for this. So I've been, planning to do lives, thinking of how I can add value to the community, the people that follow me, because I've had a period where I was writing a lot on LinkedIn, but I was like, okay, now it might be the best time to start, doing these live webinars so that we engage with the community, get to know people, get to know, what people are building. So whether you're going to watch this live or you're going to watch this later on, please let me know in the chat and let me know what you're building, where you're coming from, where you're joining us from, and also most importantly, make sure that you subscribe, because I don't remind people to subscribe a lot, and I know it's very, very, very crucial that you subscribe and then you share this with your colleagues, your friends, so that we can reach more people. So I want this to be, an interactive session, and find a way to, add value on each other, and see how it goes. So without further ado, because I'm aware of time, so I'm going to start, and then, whatever you're going to join us, or if you watch this after I've recorded, make sure that you go at the beginning so that you can watch the rest if you miss anything. Now, so today's topic will be talking about why your business feels like it's moving in circles, and the real reason why you are stuck. The reason why I've thought of working on this topic, or presenting on this topic, it's because I talk to so many business people in the ecosystem, whether they are, building startups or they're building SMEs, and there's a feeling of feeling stuck, and that is very normal. That's like having a migraine, and it's nothing um abnormal. It's very normal to feel stuck in your business. And now, what does that mean, and how can you get unstuck? That's the object, or that's the main goal of this webinar. So the reason why I chose to specifically start with this webinar, it's because I'm aware of the fact that if you're running a business, you have these moments, and most of the time you're asking yourself, okay, how can I, get or snap out of this lack of clarity, snap out of this lingering feeling of not knowing exactly what to do. And a webinar like this is going to help you know exactly what to do and what is wrong. Or because I think in the process of solving a problem, the most important thing is knowing, okay, this is where things went wrong, and this is how potentially I can adjust or solve this problem. So these are the keys to unlocking clarity in your business. So we want to shed light in your business, know exactly, okay, this is what went wrong, and this is actually how we can solve it. Now, so there's an amazing quote by Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, that says, make something people want. There's nothing more valuable than an unmet need that is just becoming fixable. If you find something broken that you can fix for a lot of people, you found a gold mine. Now, the reason why this quote, it's because most people start building businesses from everything except the needs of the people. I've seen that happening a lot. And when you see the depth of that level of bias, it's really worrisome, because if you're trying to build a business, and hypothetically speaking, usually the main purpose of building a business is to solve a problem, to meet a need. And because you've met a need, that's why you get compensated, you get paid. So and that's why I think it's very important to start with, okay, what do people actually need? And when there is no discovery of that very need, then there is a problem. And that's why the opposite of that, which means you found a need that is unmet, that you can actually meet or solve, then you have something, you have a gold mine for yourself. It's very important. So everything that we're going to discuss in this webinar is going to rotate around that. Because if you find yourself in circles, running in circles, you don't know what to do next, you don't know what is happening, it's probably because you're tackling a need that is not there, or you're not meeting properly the need that is there. So from this webinar, you're going to get away with clarity and know exactly, okay, how do I actually tackle the needs of the people I'm trying to help? So running in circles is evidence of lack of clarity. Okay, so whenever business, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that, you're trying to solve for this problem, but this one is not working. Whenever there is that dynamic in your business, it's an evidence that you lack clarity. It's time to look for to look for clarity, to seek clarity in whatever you're doing. Now, clarity comes from knowing your best next move. So clarity is not knowing everything. It's not knowing what is going to happen in the next, 2 to 3 years, or the next 12 months or 18 months. It's actually knowing what you're going to do tomorrow. There's a video I saw recently. One of the guests on the Diary of a CEO, and he was talking about how the biggest advantage of the most the highly productive people in the world is that they are very laser focused on the next 18 hours. What is the number one on three main things that I'm going to do in the next 18 hours that are going to make change or that are going to impact my business? Once that clarity is there, then you know exactly the next best move. Because if you can't, there's a time to focus on the bigger vision, but in terms of the day-to-day of running a business, you need to think of the next 18 hours. You literally think in terms of 18 hours, the chunk of 18 hours, because that's what you can control. And whoever is able to determine properly what to do in the next 18 hours and you focus on that, then you have clarity, you're making the best moves as you go. And because of that, you have an advantage over people who are just doing things in chaotically. They're just doing random activities. It's not even a to-do list at this point. It's just you're just performing random activities. So you have to know what moves the needle in your business and focus on that. There's something in productivity called the noise to signal ratio. So the noise to signal ratio, it shows, okay, noise is the things that distract you, and the signal is actually the things that move you forward. So most people, the most productive people, the most successful people in the world, they have an 80 to 20 noise ratio. So which means 80% they are laser focused on the task at hand. 20% they're just distracted. Maybe it could be resting, listening to music, watching movies, and so forth. And I'm guilty of that because I find myself sometimes my noise ratio is very high and the signal ratio is low. And this is something so since I learned that concept, I'm like, okay, how can I lower the noise ratio and then increase the signal ratio? So clarity shows really how to measure the metric for measuring clarity. The ratio for measuring clarity is literally the noise to signal ratio. Then from there, you can know exactly, oh, you know what? This is actually how productive I am as an individual. And this is the level of clarity that I have. If amongst the 18 hours of the day, the only hours you actually focused on the work is only like 1 hour or 2 hours, then there's a problem. There's a very, very big problem, because you have to increase, to stretch the signal ratio, the signal, you have that metric. It has to be increased so that you can actually be productive as an entrepreneur, as a human being in general. So very, very important. So your best next move is determined by your clients. Now, this is very important. The reason why people run in circles is because they lack clarity. Let me go back a little bit. So you're running in circles because you lack clarity. So you lack clarity because you don't know the next best move. How to know the best next move? Your customers are going to tell you the next best move, because they're the ones who tells you, okay, this is actually what we want. So the guiding compass in your business, or how do you know the next best move? How do you know what to focus on? What to focus on? I think for people who are part of my WhatsApp group, they very well know that I recently sent a series of polls in the group, asking them why did you join the group? Okay, why did you join the group? Why did you what were you looking for? How can we help you? And most of them said, we joined because we wanted resources. Actually, the reason why I'm sitting right now in front of you doing live is because you requested it. My community requested more resources. So people who joined my community, they were looking for resources to grow their businesses. And because of that, I could not sit one day and say, you know what, I'm going to do live streams. I'm going to do, to write a newsletter. I recently rebranded my newsletter. Why? Because in my community, people were asking for that. They were asking for more resources, more knowledge. So I was like, okay, now it's time to actually, so people are looking for insights to grow their businesses, or insights to go in business and actually perform. So because of that understanding, my customers, the people in my community, or the people who follow me on LinkedIn, the people who reach, the people I consult, they're the ones who tell me, okay, Willie, you know what? This is actually the best next move. Think about it this way. So a business, it's like a restaurant setup. So the client is someone who came to eat, and you are the waiter. So the client tells you exactly what to bring from the kitchen. So you have everything, but you have to wait. So the client do not serve the waiter does not serve the client until the client gives signals interest. The client has to tell you, the client has to order. They have to make an order. Say, okay, you know what? I'll take a cheeseburger with fries. You know what? And or tell, you know what? I'm going to take, I'm going to order a steak, or I'm going to order chicken ribs, or I'm going to order just a chicken salad, or I'm going to order, I don't know, all kinds of the orders that people make. And please hold off a little bit on dessert. Bring them after our drink. This is the drink. So the customers determines what you serve. So as an entrepreneur, you have a kitchen. You're cooking different things. You have a lot of things. So the best way to know what to give the customer, your next move, the only way the waiter knows what is the next thing to serve, or what to serve next, they ask the client. They ask the client, the guys who came to eat. Literally, they ask, so how can we help you? They give them the menu. They hand them the menu. So me running polls in the community was literally me saying, oh, you know what? This is the menu of what I can offer, but I want to make sure that I'm serving the right thing. And then be like, okay, all right. So this is what we need. And then I'll be like, okay, you're looking for more resources. I'm actually going to reactivate my newsletter, because I created this newsletter like 5 months back. But I was like, you know what? I actually don't know what I'm going to give these people. And because of that, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait and see if these people, they're actually going to guide me and know exactly what to focus on. Now I know what I'm going to focus on this newsletter. It's going to be a newsletter that is educative, that is insightful. So when you open it, you're going to get away with the concept, and understanding, a piece of insight that is going to guide you, in the next couple of days. Because I'll be publishing it probably like twice a week. So my next move is determined by the client. I don't decide what to do. The clients decide what I do, what I focus on. You don't focus on what you want. And I think this is very, very crucial for entrepreneurs across board. What so the way so what tells I used to work for an organization where the CEO used to tell us that we flip the organization chart upside down and the CEO is at the bottom. So he's supporting everyone to deliver to the client. So it's an upflow movement. So because of that understanding, you understand that okay, actually the customers are telling you what to do, and when the customer tells you what to do, you're not going to run in circles. The moment you feel like you don't know what to do next, what to do, what am I going to build, what how am I going to do it, how who is going to do it, when you're asking those questions, it's because you have decentered your customer. Your customer is no longer the center of whatever you do. And what you have to do immediately after having that feeling is to go back to the customer and ask them, okay, actually, how are you satisfied with what we are offering? How are we serving you? Do you like what we're doing? Then you can know exactly the best next move in your business. Now, by the way, if you have a question, please feel free to share it in the chat, because I'm going to be answering those questions. And if you any question really, you can ask about what we are discussing, but also if you have any other burning question, I'll be happy to also answer them. Now, so there's a very, very important law in the marketplace called the iron law of the marketplace. So the iron law of the marketplace, it states that even the most ingenious idea will fail if no one wants it. Creating something that no one wants is a waste. Going back to centering the customer. It's very interesting, but it's also, so it sounds obvious, but kind of like counterintuitive, because the question you can ask yourself is, okay, wait a second. If building a business or knowing what to do is that easy, so why do people not build successful businesses? Because we are not trained to ask questions. We are trained to assume. Actually, when we ask questions, actually society punishes us to ask questions. Where you see in school. So in school, when we used to ask questions, you used to be like, okay, I don't want to ask this question. Maybe I'm going to ask my friend to ask this question on my behalf, or I don't want to ask this question because I don't want to look stupid. Because of that mindset, and by the way, one of the most powerful things that I've personally witnessed, that I believe holds us back for a very long time without even us knowing it, is something called perceptual control. So we have these settings in our minds that actually control us without us knowing that they're actually controlling us. So mind you that in the marketplace, actually asking questions is beneficial. But because we come from a background where asking questions is punishable, or you don't get reward, you actually, you're sometimes you're bullied, you're just looked down upon. And because of that, your mind is conditioned to not have the appetite or be open to asking questions. And because the mind is not rewarded, so it's not going to perform that action. That's how actually the mind is wired. Our minds are wired that in a way that when you do something and you're rewarded for it, you're going to do it again. That's why addictions are a thing, because you spike the dopamine and the whole body is on fire, and the mind is like, oh my god, I want to feel like that again. Then you're going to do it again. Now, back to the iron law of the marketplace. Because we are conditioned to be punished when we ask questions, the same mindset, the same behavior is applied for the entrepreneurs when we go in the marketplace and we don't want to ask questions to the customers. Yet, asking questions is actually a proof that you understand that, okay, you're here, but you're not here just to be here. You're here because you want to service me. So how do you know what to serve me? You give me the menu. You hand me the menu. You hand me options, and you let me pick what I want to have. That's the key to clarity. You don't invent clarity. You don't go look clarity for anywhere. when you feel confused what to do next, just speak to the customer. There is something I told one, the entrepreneurs I've coached in the past, tech entrepreneurs mainly. We used to have this rule. So I used to tell them, look, guys, so you're building a software, and that you're building, it's actually interesting because you actually don't need to build it. You don't need to come up with you don't need to come up with the features. You don't need to come up with what to build. The customers are going to come up with what you build. The only thing you actually have to do is to just have one feature and give it to them and tell them, guys, I'm really confused here. What do you think I should build next? And they will tell you, oh, you know what? We actually love, that option you've given us to upload documents and retrieve them. But we actually think you can actually add a way to retrieve the documents using voiceover. And you'll be like, what? Why? Well, because people like us are very busy and we don't want to type all the time. Wait a second. So you mean you want to retrieve the document using voice because you're busy? Interesting. Then you build the voice feature. So once the voice feature is built, they use it, they love it, you collect feedback, you ask them, so, okay, what do you think we should tweak again? Oh, yeah, you know what, maybe you can add more languages because, we speak English, but actually our native language is Spanish. Wait, what? Okay, we will do that. that's in tech, and I've been a product manager, and these things are very simple but yet counterintuitive because people don't do it because we assume, because asking questions is actually punishable in the school system, in the academic system. And once you switch from the mindset of saying, okay, when you flip that switch in your mind and you say like, wait a second, actually asking questions brings reward, then the brain is going to be like, yeah, of course. So the last time we asked questions, we had like 3 features that brought, 1,000, 5,000 more users. Actually, this is actually working. This can be applied in any business, in agriculture, in entertainment, in music, in media, in everywhere. If people are looking for something, give them that. Because if they're asking something you cannot bring, then bring someone else to do it, or tell them that, or go serve another target market. But the point is, make sure that, so ask a lot of questions. Ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. So once you program that in your mind, then it's very, very easy. So basically, you're stuck because you're building something no one needs. That's the baseline. So a business that is generating money, you're paying your bills, you're generating money, you're moving forward, that business is not going to be stuck. It's impossible for that business to be stuck because the fact that, if people are coming in, money is flowing in, then it's good. Now, if you've plateaued in your business, so you say, oh, you know what? I've actually plateaued. Let's say, you've been making, let's say, $20,000, and you're like, okay, we've never been able to get past $20,000. Okay, how do we get past that? Okay, fine. So the way you get unstuck is actually asking the questions. So we're going to see how do you discover what people need? It's not a one-liner answer, but a baseline of that is actually asking people, okay, so what do you need? So whether you've plateaued, so if you've plateaued, so before you plateau, you ask questions, and when you plateau, you also ask questions. Now, how do you exactly ask those questions, but also how do you exactly discover what people need? How do you ask the right questions? Because asking a question is one thing, but also asking the right question is also even more crucial. So to know the kind of questions you have to ask, you have to understand something deeper than just a one line of saying, okay, it's asking the questions. Now, there's something you need to understand. We need to understand, me included. So building a business is like building a car. So they're technically interconnected parts that have to work together to produce a result. And when I reach here, I always pause, because one of the things that I believe the most, one of the I believe is affecting entrepreneurs in Africa, the biggest pitfall that I believe is affecting entrepreneurs in Africa is the simplicity we approach building business with. You know, people think that, okay, you have an opportunity. Let's say, let's say I'm your friend. I live in China. I'm calling you. Hi, John. Hey, look, there's these amazing containers in China full of mugs, okay, that are actually in huge need, huge demand in Africa. And I think if you buy a container, it's only $15,000. You buy, ship it to Africa. It's going to cost you, 2,000 extra. By the time it hits there, it's going to be 70,000, and you're going to sell all the mugs, and you make ballpark $25,000. That's a very good profit, because at the end of the day, you did not even invest anything. I'm just going to give you the money, and you're just going to give me, extra, profit on that money that I've invested in you. The only reason I'm telling you this is because you are in Africa, then you're going to sell. Of course, you're going to make, what, $5,000 to $8,000 already without even investing a dime in the business. Can we do that? And you'd be like, all right, yeah, please, heck yeah, let's do it. And then you do it. You make $8,000. You do it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 6 times. You make $48,000. You'll be like, wait a second, I have a business. This is a business. Well. That is where we disconnect automatically, because that's not a business. You're just a vendor. A business is a system. So what will happen if you're not there? What will happen if you bring in someone else to do it? So what is going to happen if you need to expand the business? Do you have formulas and systems in place that allows you to actually go ahead and build the business without you being technically involved in the business? And I think this is where we take things the wrong way, especially in Africa, or in the Black community in general at large. Because we tend to think that building a business is just selling and then making extra money. You're just a vendor. You're not a business. You're not an entrepreneur, because you don't have a system. A business is not the product you're selling. A business is not the activities you do. A business is a system. Why? Because a system can be scaled, can be duplicated, and it can switch hands. Very important, switching hands. Because when you have a system, then you can be able to say, okay, look, this is what we've built. You can actually go and use it. That's why I like to give the analogy of a car. Okay, so now, if building a business is like building a car, this opens another window of argument that building the car is not enough if you don't have a driver. Now we are reaching another layer of argument, because now you have a system, you have a car. Oh, wait a second. A car cannot drive itself. The purpose of a car is to be driven. It's actually movement. The purpose of a car is movement. Wait, for movement to happen, a car needs a driver, or it needs a software for self-driving cars, which is also a form of a driver. Now, the car is as good as the driver, as the one driving it. And this is also I bring in another layer of argument that says that one of the pitfalls that businesses face in Africa, mainly, most importantly, it's the incompetence of the entrepreneurs running these businesses. Because just imagine, man, like, look, you have a business, you're building a business, but you don't have the competence to actually build that, drive that business. And you don't even know that you have that incompetence. Amongst these live streams that we're going to be doing, we'll learn a lot of things. And I'm going to try to break down these concepts so that we can understand them. And if you're looking for, further help, we are going to share the details on how, we can implement whatever we're discussing this in your business. But the most important thing you need to understand, that I believe that the biggest challenge that we are facing is that we have entrepreneurs that think they know how to run businesses. And because of that unconscious incompetence, not knowing is not a problem. Not knowing something, it's actually not that bad. But thinking that you know, or not knowing that you do not know, that is an even deeper problem, because it's unconscious incompetence, which means we have to reach a level. Step one is actually making you aware that you're incompetent. And then from there, we can actually cure the incompetence, like cover the gap of the incompetence that you've demonstrated or been experiencing in your business. So what we are trying to explain here is that, you have having an amazing business without the skill to run it is like having a Ferrari, but you can't drive it. So and that defeats actually the purpose of the car, because the Ferrari is supposed to be driven. And if you can't drive it, then the purpose of the Ferrari is actually defeated. So we are trying to find a way, okay, how can we build an amazing car and have an amazing entrepreneur to actually run it? And one of the things we'll be discussing on these live calls is to make sure that as an entrepreneur, you think like an entrepreneur. You have the mental models for an entrepreneur to run, the sophistication required to run a business. Because I think I did the webinar recently, and I was speaking to people how crucial it is to actually so in the process of building a legacy business, it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to build a legacy. You have to know how to do it. You have to set up structures. You have to set up funds, trust funds, all kinds of things. So to do that, it's not going to happen if you don't know exactly what you're doing. And it always baffles me how you have, for instance, doctors. They have to study for, I don't know, 5-6 years to be doctors, to touch a patient. You have nurses, 4 years. You have car mechanics. Even driving a car, you need a driver's license. But there is no business driving license. Because you can wake up in the morning and literally call yourself an entrepreneur, but that is not as simple as it sounds. Because you need first of all, you need to become the entrepreneur and then go about running a business. No, okay, how am I going to run this business, this thing, the system that I've been handed to? So this is how I define, this entrepreneurship thing that we do. So you have a business, you have an entrepreneur, and you have movement. So when the business meets the entrepreneur, then there is movement. So movement represents growth. It represents scaling. It represents all the good stuff that you think about when you think of making, building a business or making money as an entrepreneur. So the challenge that we have these days, you have an entrepreneur that wants to have a movement, but you don't have a business. It's like having a Formula One driver race, but they don't have a car. So what is going to happen then? So you have an amazing, an amazing entrepreneur, but the entrepreneur have a business. They don't have a car. So because of that, you find yourself in a situation where you'll be like, okay, look, there's a business, but there's no entrepreneur to run it, or there's an entrepreneur, but there's no business. So we have to be aware of this fact that, okay, you're building this business, but you have to also become a good driver of the business, which also brings us to the fact that as an entrepreneur, you need to be competent enough to run the business. You need to know, okay, how is a business actually run? And concepts like these, knowing these laws, knowing these, this understanding, going through this training is actually one of the most important thing as an entrepreneur that you should do. Knowing these concepts is going to move you from, and I always say, we are going to say it, that it's not actually, so the people who are ahead of you, they're not ahead of you because of any other thing. They're ahead of you because they know something that you do not know. So people who know a lot more than you are going to make more. They're going to reach more, to reach, further than you. So the more you know, the higher the leverage. So knowledge is leverage. Now, we're talking about, the needs of the customer. This ushers us into the 3 pillars of value creation. So you're creating value for your customers, but how do you actually create value for your customer? Let's say, you're trying to come up with ways to ask questions, but before you even ask questions, to ask the best questions, there are a few things you need to understand. So there are 3 pillars of value creation. So when you're creating value, you have to understand that there are 3 main pillars the three main areas of creating value for your customers. Number one, you're either solving a need. Number two, you're either solving a want. Number three, you're encouraging one of the two. Every single business in the world that you can imagine, they fall in these categories. It's either a need business, a want business, or encourage the business. So food, that's need. Cars, that's a want. Supercars, that's encouraged. Housing, that's a need. Expensive clothing, parties, that's a want. Expensive whiskeys and other alcoholic beverage, they encourage that because it's not a need, it's not a want. It's just something they encourage through entertainment, through media. They encourage that. You don't need a $50 million house. It's not a need. That is not a want. It's an encouraged thing. So they encourage it through marketing. So it's up to you to know, okay, what is the domain? What is the section of value creation? What is the category of value that in which I'm creating in? Because value creation has these categories. So you have to know, okay, is my business a need, a want, or am I encouraging a need or a want? Now, once you classify that, then you can know, okay, if my business is a need, so it's actually what this actually means is that, I'm not going to probably struggle with, selling. The only thing I'm going to probably struggle with is actually making sure that, we have systems in place, we can scale, we can reach more people. If you are in the category of a want, so you have to know that you have to push this because people are going to buy this after their needs are met. That's very important. So on the ranks that we on the ranking in terms of priority, there's something called the Maslow needs. Okay, so if your business, if you're building a business on the lower levels of Maslow pyramid of needs, then you have to know that these are survival. That's why people put their salary, they mortgage their salary to have a roof over their head. It's because they understand that, okay, look, if we don't have roof over our heads, then we're not going to. So there is no life. Life starts with food, shelter, and clothes, and then you have security, you have actualization, self-realization, and so forth. So you're going to behave differently, and you have to ask different types of questions. Like, speaking of asking clients questions, and I think the reason why businesses are stuck is because they don't understand these things. So you're trying to build something, but you don't understand actually where you belong, because you might belong in the one section, but you might belong in the one section, but you're behaving like a need business. If you're selling perfume, you cannot advertise the same way someone who is selling potato is advertising. Someone who is selling potato does not actually need, sometimes they don't even need to advertise. I've never seen an advertisement. Have you ever seen an advertising, an ad, a commercial on potato? No, probably maybe rice processing, these people who have like big factories. But in general, food is just food. You have it or not. And sometimes even these, water company, because water is a need. Whether you want it, you need water. And because of that, there's this guy called Ashton Hall, I believe. Ashton Hall, I think. He's an influencer. He did these morning routines. And he used water, like one of the water bottle company, Saratoga, I believe. And he made like millions of views. I think 20, 30. Today it might be actually on 40 million views. It was insane. Now the question is, did Saratoga contact him and say, hey, look, like you actually did a good job. We're going to be the brand ambassador. They were like, we did not actually talk to him. They did not even bother talk to him because they were like, look, this is a need business. Of course, it has some level of want and encourage because it's a luxury bottled water. But water is water. People are going to need it whether they want it or not. But if you are not a need, a want, or even not now. You're not now. You're now on the spectrum of encouraged. You have to encourage a need or a want. Then you have to behave completely different because you're trying to create a need or a want that is not actually there. Okay, luxury bags, luxury shoes, luxury items. These things are not there. You have to create a need, a sense of lack in someone so that that person feels like, okay, buying a $28,000 watch is actually worth it, you know? And misbehaving as a business, not understanding where you belong, is actually the number one reason why you get stuck in your business. You might get stuck because of not understand, lingering around these three areas. So it's very crucial to know exactly where you belong. Now, there are 5 human needs that you need to be aware of when you're building a business, and these needs are going to help you know exactly how to speak to people. We're going to see in upcoming sessions on marketing to understand the psychology of marketing, because I think from the way people reacted in my community, there is a huge knowledge gap of founders. Uh, so the founders, the business owners, lack business knowledge. They don't have the package that is needed, that is required to run a business. You will realize that the most successful CEOs actually, they read a lot. They go to these. They hire coaches. I always say that uh, the best NBA players don't share coaches with the team only. They have a team coach, but they also have personal coaches. These are the people who are going to, move you from being a regular person, a regular player, to someone who is very, very, very unique in terms of competence and understanding. Because if you have this level of comprehension, these mentor models are going to help you see your business in a completely different way. These 5 core drive of human needs, if you think of any business in the world, they fit in there because they understand that, remember, we are creatures of habits. So the way we behave is actually not we did not acquire these behaviors when we were born. These behaviors, the way we behave, it was acquired 8,000 years ago by our ancestors. This is ancestral knowledge. That's why when you get scared, the body feels like it's a lion that is about to attack you. But really, you just lost your phone. You just forgot where you put your phone. But the way the body is reacting is like a leopard is about to, charge towards you. And because big businesses, they hire consultants and psychologists to help them understand, okay, what is the drive that we need to tackle for specifically for our business? Okay. So a drive to acquire. That's why people buy cars. That's why people buy expensive bags. That's why people buy homes. Someone has like 2, 3, 4, 5 homes. That's a drive to acquire, a drive to bond. That's why people spend a lot of money on concerts, festivals, cruise ship, cruise excursions. You see, cruise ships trips, stuff like that. That's why people go for networking events, expensive networking events, dinners, you know. People do that because they have a drive to bond. They want to bond, they want to connect. That's why people sometimes, you watch someone, posting something on social media and you're like, wait a second, what? How can you post something like that? I thought that was very personal. Well, look, I'm trying to bond with my audience. That's a drive to bond. And that's why social media is so successful, because they understand that our ancestors used to live in tribes. And because our ancestors used to live in tribes, there is subconsciously in our DNAs, because DNA is 98% information and 2% protein. So literally the habits of your forefathers are literally given to you through DNAs. And you don't acquire only protein, you acquire also habits, ways of thinking, mental models. And because they know that, they were like, wait. So a social media is actually a virtual tribe. Oh, the desire is already there. The need, the program is already in the psyche. So it's very easy to actually get get people on social media, and then we can start assessing and thinking of ways we can actually monetize whatever attention we've gathered from these people. A drive to learn. That's why you're on this way, on this live YouTube, because you want to satisfy your curiosity. We're like, wait a second, there is this problem that I'm struggling with my business. I feel like I'm running in cycles, and there's this webinar that is about to go live on YouTube. Really is going to be talking about this. I might actually learn something. Then you hop on, and then you're learning that now you're here. So that is a drive to learn, because remember the tribes, the ancestral knowledge. We used to sit exactly the way you're seated in front of me right now, learning the stories, learning from the. So learning is something that has, so knowledge has been passed down on generations for a very long time. So it's not something that is now happening for a very long time. Now there's also a drive to defend. So the desire to protect ourselves. Now we're talking about cybersecurity companies. You're talking about security companies. You're talking about the army and so forth. And no wonder why. Actually, the defense industry is one of the biggest the biggest industries in the world, because the drive to defend is deeply engraved in our DNAs, because people understand that, okay, so our ancestors used to flee from a tiger that wants to kill them, and now you have cybersecurity threats, and then that threat triggers the same DNAs, activates the same DNA strands in us that actually helps, causes us to react in the same way, and we spend money. So your business has to feel in one of these aspects. Is it a drive to acquire? Is it a drive to bond? Are you solving? What is the drive are you meeting right now? My drive is the drive to learn. Okay, that's the drive I'm tackling right now. Okay, and probably a drive to defend, because you want to defend your business. You don't want to lose your business. You want to be successful as a business owner. Okay, and because I understand that, that's where I focus. I'm going to focus on this because my community showed me that actually this is what we need. I'm like, okay, on the four core human needs that I'm actually going to tackle is going to be the drive to defend. That's where we're going to focus on moving forward. So build a business around your client's core needs, and they will take care of your business for the rest of its existence. I can't emphasize this more. So build the business around the needs of your customers. Are they looking for resources? Give them resources. Are they looking for community? Organize events. Are they looking for so and so? Give them that. Because if you don't do that and you try to do actually, what you want, then they'll be like, okay, that's not what we ordered. Hey, this is not the order I placed. Can you please replace it? Or I'm going to switch restaurants. With good reasons. I understand them. It actually makes sense. So build a business around your client's core needs. There's a rule in business called the Crusader rule. So a Crusader rule, it came from the times of the crusade, where they were crusading around the message of Christ, spreading Christianity. And the reason why the Crusader rule is very crucial, it's because business without a crusade around it, that business is going to have a very hard time. You need believers of the idea that you're building. That's why in today's social media virtual platform era, it's very crucial to test the ideas, test the water, see what people resonate with, and then double down on that. See what people resonate with, double down on that. And that is going to help you to not crash into the Crusader rule. Because if you build a business and there is no believers, then that business is bound to struggle, Because if you see the most successful companies in the world, Tesla, Tesla was a regular company when Elon Musk took over. By the way, he's not the actual founder. Tesla was bought from another group of people, group of founders. But Elon Musk understood that, okay, look, this is a social media era. We actually, so to build this, I need a brand. People need to identify Tesla with, a person. That person is going to build a crusade, a community around Tesla. And then we're going to have actually a company that have a soul. And that's how the crusader rule is actually is applied to the businesses. And another thing that is very, very crucial is, for instance, another example, people like Steve Jobs, like Bill Gates, they understood this. Because a business without a crusade, a form of like philosophy that drives it, is going to be just a merchant. You're just a merchant. Entrepreneurs have stories. I think I shared something recently on LinkedIn when I was talking about, Jeff Bezos' marriage. How, this, because he's associating now himself with, Hollywood and everything, he wants to change, to switch the identity and attract a different type of crusade around him, because he understands the game, how the game is played, and how now people live on social media. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and other platforms are like now, they feel like it's the town square. It's where people go to hang out. And if you don't appeal to those people, then you don't have a business. And I swear that, I can actually bet on this, that the bump, the Amazon stocks are going to have a bump, a little bit of a bump in the coming few days, because now, he's now a cultural figure. He's no longer an entrepreneur. This guy did it too. Mark Zuckerberg, he was just a nerd, Silicon Valley nerd, and now he has now transformed himself into like this cool masculine figure that, attends UFC and these masculine sports, because he understands the game, the crusader rule, that whatever he's building, if it doesn't have cult, and that's why Americans created unicorns, big companies. It's because they understand that psychologically, people, like I said, like we're talking about the DNAs and the ancestral memory. In our ancestral memory, there is memories of these large communities that we're part of, our ancestors were part of. And because of that, whoever builds, if you do something that is similar to that, you activate that DNA strand. And this is very, very, very crucial, because there's something I read recently that talks about how when you want to change, when you want to change behavior, you have to do behaviors that are directly connected to our reptile brains, because the reptile brain is, the most, it's unconscious. We don't control it. We don't control fear, anger. Sometimes these things are just encoded in our DNAs. And if you do that, then you start seeing movement. And people actually are not going to know exactly what is happening to them. Like if you ask someone, why do you scroll on TikTok? And I'm guilty of that, because I scroll TikTok too. And except that I do maybe a different kind of scroll, like, I can scroll and then learn something, but I also scroll TikTok and Instagram and other social media. So if you ask someone, so why do you scroll TikTok, they'll be like, okay, can you tell me, like, how did you spend 1 hour on TikTok scrolling, like, or even hours, like you go to bed at 2, and then by the time you realize it's 5 a.m. in the morning. Wait, so how did that happen? So your brain went, automatic pilot, because there is there's that aspect of our brain that we don't control, and these rules actually touches directly to that part of our brains. Now, another rule is the mercenary rule. So don't start a business just for the purpose of making money alone. Now I'm going to explain myself on this. The reason why you need more than money, it's because there's a time in your business where it's going to be tough, and you have to come back to knowing exactly why you started. Okay, why did you start? So you need a purpose behind your business, some form of mission, of purpose. Because also another thing that is very, very crucial, people buy into that. People buy into that. When people buy into that, then that's why you have the crusader rule. People have to feel a sense of mission. around what you do, and then they come after that mission. That's why, Steve Jobs had, think different. Tesla, the same, going electric, some form of philosophy around it, and changing the world and so forth. And then people now are going to be attracted on that. So just make sure that whatever business you're doing, keep the focus on money, but also make sure that, okay, why did you start this business in the first place? So the difference between you and those ahead of you, I think I mentioned this earlier, is not what they do, is what they know. So knowledge gives you leverage, because your life is as good as what you know. The level of peace, the level of success you have, the level of calm and collection and competence and and vigor, like the life that you have right now is a reflection of what you know. So the more you know, the better you know, the better the life that you're going to live, the better decisions that you're going to make. That's why it's very, very crucial for entrepreneurs to be knowledgeable, to know these things, to think in this way. And when someone thinks this way, it's very easy for that person to actually switch and then build something amazing. Because I think what makes these entrepreneurs, the reason why we have I think this is something that actually I'm discovering right now, is this. The reason why I saw a post on LinkedIn, someone asked, okay, why don't we have unicorns in Africa? Why don't we have like successful big businesses in Africa? Now that I'm doing this, I think the reason why we don't have those kinds of businesses in Africa is because we don't have people who think like that in Africa. We don't have people who think like that in Black communities. It could be in Rwanda, it could be abroad. We don't have that. And because of that, we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, you cannot build you cannot build a Mercedes Benz if you don't have the competence of a Mercedes Benz engineer. You have to be that kind of engineer and actually build that thing, because a business is an extension of who you are. And I think by transforming entrepreneurs, by transforming the founders, you can actually transform the businesses, the kinds of businesses that they're building. And I think now that this is the reason why most people in the group voted for resources, because they want to grow as entrepreneurs. I have a friend of mine, she was, working with this organization, a potentially successful organization, but the head was not very, very good at leading the business. And people left, people were complaining, they were not happy, but the business was okay. But a business is an extension of who you are. And the more you know, the more work you do, the more competent you are in terms of building the business, the better you're going to the better the business you're going to build. Similar to how kids are extensions of their parents. Amazing kids usually comes from amazing parents. If you've seen that, and crazy kids come from crazy parents. I understand that kids can stray away a bit, but they're going to come back on the line later on in life, because that is deep in their psychology, in their psyche. So that's why I think it's very, very important for entrepreneurs to be competent. So as an entrepreneur, you're actually a competent person. You can go ahead and build something amazing. So yeah, so in a nutshell, the most fatal mistake a business can make is to decenter the client. Don't decenter a client. So whatever you're doing, keep the client at the center. Keep asking questions. Keep poking their needs to understand, okay, what is the next best thing that I can build? What am I going to do? How can I improve? How can I build more? How can I add value to whatever you're doing? And then from there, you find yourself with conglomerates of businesses, because the customers are going to keep telling you, okay, do this, do that, help us with that, help us with it, do this, do that. And then at the end of the day, you find yourself in a position where you'll be like, okay, wow, now I'm proud of what I've built, because just for the sake, just for the only reason that you've actually kept the customer where they belong, which is where at the center. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. I don't see hands in the comment, so I'm going to assume that everything was comprehensible. But if you have a question, please make sure that you drop it in the comment. I'll go back and read the comment and see if we can maybe produce a video on it, or I can comment it on my other platforms. But in make sure that this is the private community that we have on WhatsApp. Scan and then join the community. I'm going to wait a bit so that you can scan. All right. And this is my newsletter where I share bi-weekly business insights to help the founders grow, to help the founders become incredible entrepreneurs, to help the founders become amazing founders. So make sure that you scan and subscribe on that one. And if you want to book a consultation, this is also my calendar. Feel free to scan and then book a consultation, and let's see how we can help you. But until next time, I thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Thank you so much, and take care of yourself.